Hey guys, coming at you with chapter 6, Thief of Always. All right, if you remember last time, um, Harvey had thought he'd heard a voice as he was going into the house, but he wasn't really sure if it was real or not. So he decided he didn't really care because everything was so cool there and it seemed real. So that's all he was going to worry about. All right, so chapter 6 is called Seen and Unseen. And check out that picture. I wonder what that's about. A little weird looking, huh? All right. So, seen and unseen. Well, said Wendell as they ate, what are you going to be tonight? I don't know, Harvey said. What are you going to be? If you'll remember, it was Halloween was coming that night. Okay. So they'd already gone through the morning, the afternoon. Now it was evening. And remember, the leaves were changing and falling off the trees last time. So it's getting to be the season of autumn, which is when Halloween comes, or fall. All right. I'm going to be a hangman, Wendell said, with a spaghetti grin. I've been learning how to tie nooses. Now all I've got to do is find someone to hang. He eyed Mrs. Griffin. It's quick, he said. Won't take long. Now that's horrible, Mrs. Griffin said. Why do you boys love talking about ghosts and things like that and hangings? Because it's exciting, Wendell said. You're just little monsters, she replied with a hint of a smile. That's what you are, little monsters. Harvey is, Wendell said. I've seen him filing down his teeth. Harvey gave Wendell a strange look. Is it a full moon? Harvey asked, smearing ketchup around his mouth and putting on a twitch. I hope so. I need blood. Good, said Wendell. You can be a vampire. I'll catch him and you can take care of the rest of it. Horrible, said Mrs. Griffin again. Just horrible. With another grin. Perhaps the house had heard Harvey wishing for a full moon, because when he and Wendell traipsed upstairs and looked out the landing window, there, hanging between the bare branches of the trees, was a moon so wide and so white, bigger than any Harvey had ever seen before. Whoa, look at it, Harvey said. I can see every crater. It's perfect. Oh, that's just the start, Wendell promised, and led Harvey to a large, musty room, which had been filled with clothes of every description. Some were hung on hooks, coat hangers. Some were in baskets, like actors' costumes. Still, some were heaped at the far end of the room on the dusty floor. And half hidden until Wendell cleared the way was a sight that made Harvey gasp. A wall covered from floor to ceiling with masks. Whoa, where did they all come from? Harvey said as he gaped at the spectacle. Mr. Hood collects them, Wendell explained. And the clothes are just stuff the kids who visited here left behind. Harvey wasn't interested in the clothes. It was the mask that mesmerized him. They were like snowflakes. No two were alike. Some were made of wood and of plastic, some of straw and cloth and paper mache. Some were as bright as parrots, others as pale as parchment. Some were so grotesque he was certain they'd been carved by crazy people. Others were so perfect they looked like the masks of angels. There were masks of clowns and foxes, masks like skulls decorated with real teeth, and one with carved flames instead of hair. Take your pick, said Wendell. There's bound to be a vampire somewhere. Whenever I come in here wanting to find, I always seem to find it sooner or later. Harvey decided to leave the pleasure of choosing a mask until last and concentrated instead on digging up something suitably bat-like to wear. As he worked through the piles of clothes, he found himself wondering about the children who left all these clothes here. Though he'd always hated history lessons, he knew some of these jackets and shoes and shirts and belts had been out of fashion for many years, which means they had to be from long, long ago. Where were their owners now? Why, these clothes were so old that the kids would have to be either dead or old people by now. The thought of these garments belonging to folks who might have passed away or be old men and women by now brought a little shudder to his spine, which was only right. This was Halloween after all, and what was Halloween without a little shuddering and chills? So that makes you wonder if there's clothes like that Harvey can tell like their styles from long, long ago. How old is the holiday house and how long have kids been coming there? And if you think of all those piles of clothes, How many kids have been to the holiday house? Interesting, huh? Well, after a few minutes of searching, Harvey found a long black coat with a collar he could turn up, which Wendell pronounced very vampiric. Well satisfied with his choice, he went back to the wall of faces, and his eyes almost immediately alighted upon a mask he hadn't previously seen, with the pallor and deep sockets of a soul just risen from the tomb. He took it down and put it on. It fitted perfectly. What do I look like? Harvey asked, turning to face Wendell, who had found an executioner's mask which fitted him just perfectly as well. Ugly, said Wendell. Good, said Harvey. There was a flickering family of pumpkin heads lined up on the porch when they stepped outside, and the misty air smelled of wood smoke. That's one of the smells I always associate with fall, is like the smell of burning wood or burning leaves. So even the smells of fall are there. And where did all those carved pumpkins come from, I wonder? Well, where do we go trick-or-treating? Harvey wanted to know. Out in the street? No, said Wendell. It's not Halloween out in the real world, remember? We're going to go around the back of the house. That's not very far, Harvey remarked, disappointed. It is at this time of night, Wendell said creepily. This house is full of surprises, I'm telling you. Harvey looked up at the house through the tiny eye holes of his mask. It loomed as large as a thunderhead, its weather vanes sharp enough to stab the stars. Come on, said Wendell. We got a long trip ahead. A long trip, Harvey thought. How could it be a long trip from the front of the house to the back? But once again, Wendell was right. The house was full of surprises. So that's weird that the house could all of a sudden be so big that it takes a long trip just to get from the front to the back. Interesting, huh? The trip, which would have been a 2-minute walk in the bright afternoon sun, soon became a trek that Harvey was wishing he'd brought a flashlight and a map for. The leaves rustled underfoot as if snakes were swarming through them. The trees that shaded them by day now looked frightful in their darkness, missing all their leaves. Why am I doing this? He asked himself as he followed Wendell through the darkness. I'm cold and I'm uncomfortable. He might have added frightened to the list, but he left that thought unsaid. As he was about to suggest they turn around, Wendell pointed up and hissed, "Look!" Harvey looked. Directly overhead, a form was moving silently against the sky as if it had launched itself from the eaves of the house. The moon had slunk away behind the roof and shed no light upon this night flyer, so Harvey could only guess at its shape from the stars it blotted out as it sailed. Its wings were wide, but raggedy, too raggedy to hold it up, he thought. Instead, it seemed to claw at the darkness as it went, as though it were crawling on the very dark air itself. A glimpse was all Harvey had, then it was gone. What was that? He whispered. He got no answer. In the moments he'd taken, staring up at the sky, Wendell had disappeared. Wendell, Harvey whispered, where are you? There was still no reply, just the slithering in the leaves and the moan of hungry branches. I know what you're doing, Harvey said, louder this time, and you won't scare me that easy. You hear me? This time there was a reply of sorts. Not words, but a creaking sound from somewhere in the trees. Ha! He's climbing up into the treehouse, Harvey thought, and determined to catch Wendell and scare him back, he followed the sounds. Despite the nakedness of the branches missing their leaves, their mesh kept all but a glimpse of starlight from falling on the groves. He slipped his mask down around his neck so he could see a little better, but even then he was still nearly blind as it was so dark, and he had to listen out for the sound of Wendell's climbing to guide him. He could still hear the creaks plainly enough, and stumbled in their direction, his arms outstretched to grasp the ladder when he finally reached it. Now the sound was so loud he was certain he must be standing right beneath the tree. He looked up, hoping to catch a glimpse of the trickster, but as he did, something brushed his face. He snatched at it, but it was gone, at least for the moment. Then it came again, brushing his brow from the other side. He snatched at it a second time. Then, as it touched him again, he caught hold of it. Got you, he cried. His yell of triumph was followed by a rush of air and the sound of something crashing to the ground. He jumped, but refused to let go of whatever he was holding on to. Wendell, he called. By way of the reply, a flame flared in the darkness behind him, and a firework erupted into a shower of green sparks, its light making a cavern of the grove. By its flickering light, he saw what he held, and seeing, let out a panicked yammering that had the crows rising from their roosts overhead. Now, if he yelled so loud it would rise the crows from the roost, that means he let out a pretty big scream. So I wonder what he's got. And also, somebody shooting fireworks off. It was not a ladder he'd heard creaking. It was a rope. No, not even a rope, a noose. And in his hands, the leg of something hanging from the noose. He let go of it and stumbled backward, barely suppressing a second shout as his eyes rose to meet the dead thing's stare. To judge by his expression, he had died horribly. The tongue lolled from its foamy lips. Its veins were so swollen, his head looked like a pumpkin. Either that or, wait a minute, was it a pumpkin? A fresh fountain of sparks now burst from another firework, and Harvey saw the truth of the matter. The limb he'd held was not a limb, but a stuffed trouser leg, the body of a coat spilling bundles of clothes that had a mask on the top of it, which was a pumpkin, with cream sprayed on it for spittle and eggs placed on it for eyes. Wendell, he yelled, turning his back on the scene of the execution. Wendell! Harvey finally saw Wendell. He was standing on the far side of the fireworks, his ear-to-ear grin lit by the spitting sparks. He looked like a little demon, fresh from the inferno. At his side was the ladder that he had come crashing down to get the drama underway. I warned you, Wendell said, holding up his mask. I said I was going to be a hangman tonight and scare you. I'm going to get you back for this, Harvey said, his heart still beating too fast for him to see the funny side of this. Ooh, I'll get you back. You can try, Wendell crowed. The firework was beginning to fizzle out, the shadows around them beginning to deepen again. Had enough of Halloween for tonight, he asked. Harvey didn't much like admitting defeat, but he nodded, grimly swearing to himself that when he finally got his revenge, it would be good. Oh, smile, Wendell said, as the fountain of sparks dwindled. We're in the holiday house. The light had almost gone, and even though Harvey was still very upset at Wendell and at himself for being such a sucker, he couldn't let it die away without making peace. All right, he said, allowing himself a tiny smile. There'll be other nights. Oh, always, said Wendell. The reply pleased him. That's what this place is, he said, as the light went out. It's the house of always. All right, here's a quick picture. So what Wendell did to scare him was he tied a noose around a dummy with a pumpkin head on it. Okay, so see, it's got eggs for eyes, and then he used cream to make the stuff coming out of its mouth. But it's just like you see people do at Halloween. They'll take clothes and stuff them with leaves or straw or something to make it look like a real person. So that's what Wendell did to scare Harvey tonight. All right, so you learned some new things about the setting and some new things about the characters. So keep that in mind. Those are going to be questions you're going to be responding to today and tomorrow, dealing with those two things. So, all right, next chapter is called A Present from the Past. And it looks like we're going to get to the holiday of Christmas next time. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so go do your response and have a great day.